We are joined by the legend himself, Baldy. What's going on?
Morning, guys, or good afternoon, I guess, wherever you might be. But, beautiful day here in South Florida. And I know you guys are getting ready for your mini camp this week. So I'm anxious to hear what happens.
Yeah, we are as well, Baldy. And we're anxious to see if JK Dobbins will be wearing orange and blue at some point, whether it's this week, whether it's training camp or the season. Does it make sense for the Broncos to bring in JK Dobbins and add him to this team?
He had a good year last year. He did get hurt, didn't finish it, but he did have a good season. He's had a lot of injuries. Contract-wise, you got to factor in injury provisions if he's going to, come on board because I don't know that he's ever played a full season. I'd have to go look that up, but he had a good season for the Chargers last year. So there was a performance last year they hadn't shown in a while. And when he was healthy, he was very good. So does it make sense? I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you do something like that, they become a rep stealer from a guy like RJ Harvey. Like, honestly, if you drafted this guy where you drafted him, let him, that's where JK was drafted too. He was a second-round pick. Do you want to take reps away from a guy that you spent a high pick on like that? I'm not sure that that's what I would do at this point.
How many reps would you want RJ Harvey to get in a rookie season like this? And what's the right number to give to someone else, that's in that room?
I feel like, you got to let these guys, you got to let these guys run it, so 200 would be a minimum, I would think. That's a second-round pick now. That's where the sweet spot for running backs normally are. Now, I know this year was a little bit different, but for most years, Nick Chubb was a second-round pick. Derrick Henry was a second-round pick. That's usually the sweet spot for running backs is the second round. And so, the worst thing to do is all right, let's just say you sign JK. Let's say he's having a pretty good season, and then something happens. And now, RJ gets a majority of the carries, and he plays great, and he runs it great. You're like, man, we put in, we invested something in JK Dobbins, and RJ could have done that. That's what I mean by a rep stealer. Let this guy go. I kind of feel like let this go. I know there's a big buzz about it right now, but I don't know. This guy, the tape that RJ had the last 2 years, I'd like to see what he can do right now.
The part that scares me with Dobbins is that, so he had the incredible first 2 weeks last year where he's leading the NFL in rushing. Yep. But he put up 3.8 yards per carry from week 3 on last year. And I wonder a little bit, especially because of the injury history, if he just might be kind of burned out. And maybe the Broncos get him and have some strategy to keep him healthy or see something that was happening in those first 2 weeks that wasn't happening later. But I think that's the red flag to me is that, what you want is the guy that you saw 14 games ago, not the guy that you kind of saw later on in the season.
Well, that's true, but a guy like JK Dobbins, he's from a little small town in Texas. He goes to Columbus. He starts 3 straight years there. He starts day one. He's one of those guys that had a lot of carries in college, and sometimes that carries over to you only have so many carries in you, so many good carries where you're breaking tackles, contact balance, all that kind of stuff, and you're going, does this a carryover from that? And you don't know because everybody's different. Everybody sort of expires differently. Some guys can prolong it. He has missed a lot of time where, he wasn't getting his body pounded, but still it caught up to him last year. So, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to pound the ball last year with the Chargers. We kind of know what Harbaugh likes to do. And they went in a different direction from the guys that they had there last year. And part of it was, I'm sure they got to see him up close, even though he had some good games early. They decided, no, this is not the guy we're going to bring back. Maybe there's something there that they saw that they didn't want to do it.
Baldy, on a different note, last week we got to watch one of the OTA practices, and my biggest takeaway from that, one of my biggest takeaways at least, was Evan Engram, when they were doing individual drills, was exclusively working with the wide receivers, not the tight ends. And personally, I love to see that because Evan Engram's in his 30s now. There's no messing around with what he is. He's a receiver for this team. Is that a good sign to see him just working with receivers? What do you make of that with Sean?
Well, I mean, he's a slot receiver. That's what he's been. Yeah, man. When he was drafted by the Giants, he wasn't a tight end. He was never a blocking tight end. At best, he was a second tight end opposite the formation of where they were going. For the most part, in Jacksonville, he was almost used exclusively as a slot receiver. When he put up 100 catches, he was like a slot receiver. So I think that's how they're going to use him. I think he's going to be. I mean, some teams, Denver isn't one of those, but some teams, they have their inside receivers, they have their outside receivers. My guess is that that's where you're going to see him. He's going to be an inside slot receiver. He'll be in motion to change strengths and things like that and to look for matchups. But that's when he's at his best, is when he is in the slot, and that's where he works his best, his best routes. That's where he works. I mean, and so I think that's probably where you're going to see him.
I want to go back to the running back room just for a second here. And I hear what you guys are both saying, Henry and Baldy, about JK Dobbins and kind of the risks involved there. My question is, with the young running back room that the Broncos would have, is there someone in that room that you trust to protect your franchise quarterback? And, it feels like it should be Audric Estime, but, is he in a place in his development where you could say, hey, we just need you to come in here and block for Bo?
Well, if you're going to be that guy, you also have to be a great receiver. So who's the best receiver? I mean, typically you want a combination because it's not enough just to stay in there, because if nobody comes and they don't blitz, then you need to get out. And you got to be that safety valve. So it's not enough just to be able to block. You got to be able to protect and receive and be a valuable, fourth option or fifth option, depending what the protection is. And so I don't know that we've seen enough from Audric Estime right now that he's that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, that is the value of a guy like JK Dobbins too, is that he's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. I know Sean shouted out Tyler Bidet last week, just kind of out of nowhere, for being a guy who can pass protect. But again, like, if that's your one guy that you're putting on the field, is that really who you want to give those touches to? I don't know. Baldy, what do you think of just the fact that JK would be a veteran? Like, does a running back room need to have somebody who's played a bunch of football, who, especially in Harbaugh offenses, I could see that there could be some value in that.
I think there's value. There's value to having, he's still young, but
True.
He'd be the most veteran guy of everybody there right now. There's value in that. But like I said, if he's stealing reps from RJ Harvey, is that the guy you want? If he can give you 200 good reps and be healthy for 14 games, nobody knows that. But if you said, okay, at the end of the year, would you sign off on this? You'd probably take, that type of production, 14 games, 200 carries, because you're going to get 450 carries in this offense for the most part. So how are you going to split it up? You might get a little bit more depending on, just ball control and things like that. But you're kind of banking on 450 carries of an offense. Every team is a little bit different. Baltimore is going to be more than that. But, for the most part, 450 is kind of the number out of 1,000, 1,100, snaps. And so, if you want to split up and go 200 and then RJ Harvey, get 150 and, Bidet and McLaughlin, maybe, or, Estime, you're probably going to keep 4 backs just because they're so young right now. But somebody's going to be, if they sign JK, somebody's going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, and Baldy, speaking of free agents, there's 2 new free agents in the NFL as of today. Jermaine Pratt was released, as well as Jair Alexander. Some Broncos fans are saying that they should go after these guys. To me, neither really makes sense just with where the Broncos are at, inside linebacker and cornerback. Do you think that either one of those guys makes sense for the Broncos to go after?
No, because, they still drafted Drew Sanders last year. I know he was hurt. Singleton is back right now. Greenlaw is presumably healthy. Like the inside linebacker position in the corner, you just drafted a corner in the first round. They've got good depth at that position. It's not any. Those are 2 names I would not. Like Jermaine Pratt has been a very productive linebacker at Cincinnati. You look at his stats. He filled up the stat page. while he was there. It kind of went downhill a little bit last year, so he's a declining player. And they drafted, a linebacker in the first round, or second round. But, for the most part, I would say that neither one of those guys would fit with what I'm looking at right now in Denver. I mean, I think if you look at, a corner right now, Riley Moss is certainly going to be the guy, and Barron. I mean, they've got their guys, I think, lined up there right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Baldy, we love having you on. Thanks for checking in with us a little earlier this week with mandatory minicamp here. We look forward to catching up and wrapping up mandatory minicamp with you next week. Have a great start of your week, Baldy.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Thanks, guys. Talk to you real soon. Take care.